No, the whole place is going to smell like burnt eggplant. No, you can leave it on. It's fine. Wow,
Oh.
hanging out up in the north end. Stacy Ortner. I can't keep track.
I did text you that.
I can't keep track. I was cooking all day. Maybe I'll bring her a rub of love gift pack.
Sure.
I used a lot of rub yesterday.
How was your cooking for them?
Well, I was just getting all the
Prep done.
Saturday night on Bainbridge. I didn't have time to do it today. I've got a class tonight and blah, blah, blah. Lower, Sean.
Too much time in a restaurant and not the right shoes.
You don't have to at all. Annie's right here. She's just offering you her spot if you want.
Hello.
I just won't touch it.
It's hard when you're here for 2 hours. That work now?
Yeah, is that okay?
Yeah.
Okay.
You can bring it down.
No, I'm good. Perfect. Yeah.
Our YouTube friends, they're open. Morning, YouTubers. Thank you for joining us. Chef Terry came back from France, not feeling very well, so he is off once again this week.
Wow. I think he's just avoiding you.
Hopefully he's watching on YouTube right now. Maybe next week, if he's available next week, we'll do the whole show just on his trip and all the different places and
No, I cannot wait to
what
hear
his
about it.
mom cooked for him.
It's quite a trip. He's been gone for
3 weeks.
Yeah.
That's a normal trip to Europe.
Not everyone does it in a week like we do.
Or for 4
5
days.
days.
Yeah.
When was last time you were in France? When we went to Paris.
Maybe 5 years ago. No, I went to the fancy food show there with Jamie. Maybe 3 years ago, 3-4 years ago. You ready for us, Sean? We sound good? Everybody sounds good? Sounds good. You have to be our audience motivator. Don't forget. Welcome to the Hot Stove Society Show on Cairo Radio. Here we are, downtown Seattle. Once again, happy to have you here. We are in the beautiful Hotel Andra in our kitchen studios here at Hot Stove, sponsored by KitchenAid and Booze Blocks and all the good things that make a great kitchen. Terry, once again, not feeling well. He made it all the way back from France, but not feeling well, so he's going to take the week off. Hopefully, he'll be back next week. So my daughter Loretta, since it's Father's Day, is going to sit in his spot. Are you excited?
You've allowed me here in his stead.
2 weeks ago you did this, and you liked it, right?
I did. It was fun.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
I'm happy
good.
to be back.
Good. How's my grandson Hercules?
He is doing great.
Uh-huh.
He was less cute at 5 a.m., but other than that, it's awesome.
Good. I'm glad to hear that. I saw a video of him yesterday with all he needed was a stick and a little cowboy handkerchief, and he would have been on his way.
I know we had him in his first pair of shorts yesterday because the hot weather is maybe finally coming, and he was rocking it.
He was rocking it, and then he was heading down the steps and waving goodbye and on his way to the park. My name is Tom Douglas. I'm chef owner of a couple of places here around Seattle, including the Hot Stove Society, Lola, Dahlia Bakery, Serious Pie, and of course, Seatown Restaurant in the north end of the Pike Place Market area, where we do oysters and fish and chips and chowder and all sorts of fun kind of everyday fare. We have a large show for you, 2 hours. We are here every week, almost 22 years now, I believe we've been on the air, so we're thrilled about that. And lots of delicious topics today, including peak of the season, young, delicate greens, which calls for a little light vinaigrette. And I think that's something that people get confused about, especially with these spring greens, is that they want to put too heavy of a dressing on it. They can't have a ranch dressing. You can't have a Thousand Island dressing. It just crushes the greens. So let's talk about that later in the show. A perfect Father's Day menu. My father's long been gone, but I know he was a prime rib man. And if I was at home making Father's Day dinner for him, I would probably do just that. There's no sense fighting a classic. But Loretta's going to tell us today what she would make for me compared to what she might make for her new father in her life, her husband. So I think they're probably two different things. We're going to find out. Two different generations, I'll say, for Father's Day. Danica Noble was here last week and was telling us about what's the current update in Ukraine, trying to feed all the refugees, millions and millions of refugees, 2 to 3 meals a day. I mean, that's, when you think about it, I believe there's 5 million refugees now. Times 3, that's 15 million meals a day alone just for the refugees. She's going to tell us how that process is working with World Central Kitchen, Jose Andres' thing. Unbelievable
project.
Kat Lieu is going to join us to talk about her new book called Modern Asian Baking at Home for 2 segments today. I'm really interested in this book because I love the whole mochi thing, which this particular book has lots of mochi recipes in it, but it's also how she crowdsourced her information. And
it's such a modern book in that way.
I know.
I think so.
I mean, it's modern Asian baking in a lot of ways, but the whole way of putting a book together was very modern. Top 10 reasons to roast a pork shoulder. Michael, who's sitting in for Pamela today, who's under the weather, is going to tell us what his favorite roasted pork shoulder recipe is, because you're kind of a active home cook, aren't you?
I would say so. Yeah, I'm a trained culinarian, and working here in this company has definitely opened my eyes to a lot more avenues of preparations and flavors. So
right, your day-to-day job is graphics and photography and
social media.
Media, but you're going to jump in here today because you used to work right in this kitchen here at the Hot Stove.
I sure did. I got my start here at the Hot Stove Society before the pandemic started, and I've never lost my love for it.
And of course, we're going to finish up the show with some Father's Day tasty trivia questions from our friend Becky Guzak. If I know Becky, she's probably left the hardest questions for last, so I might go first today.
No.
Just to throw a wrench into things. But first, let's talk about our taste of the week. Have you had anything most delicious this week?
We did a little taste off this week of Copper River Sockeye and Copper River King from Wild Salmon Fish Market. And it was super interesting. They were very different. They look completely different. And I think the King won for us, but I think we also had a perfect piece. Sometimes I like that sockeye is a little firmer, but it was the perfect piece of Copper River King salmon.
Isn't that awesome? That is such an interesting thing, because so far for me this season, I've liked the sockeye better because it's firmer texture. The King has been so fatty that it becomes a little bit flabby.
Yeah.
And so I've really enjoyed the bite.
I love both.
The
I was very surprised by just how different they were. We had the sockeye again last night, and I mean, for the price, I think it's unbelievable.
Right. When I was at Shoreline Central Market yesterday, I'm cooking right now for 40 people for an event on Saturday for Camp Corey, which is that amazing camp started by Paul Newman and his group up in the North End. And my friend Sue Colburn is a board member there and talked me into donating a dinner for 40 out there at her house on Bainbridge. But I was, grocery shopping for it yesterday, and it was amazing the effort they put into selling the white Copper River King salmon, how rare it was, blah, blah, blah. And people still fall for that in a funny way, thinking that is somehow more pristine or more delicious. And it's just different, right? It's a chromosome issue. It's just a different fish. They all come from the same batch of fish and going up the same river. And it's just a chromosome issue. And, but people out there, I
don't actually think I've ever had the white.
Yeah, sometimes they call it ivory, white king, whatever. But anyway, that was interesting. I will say that I was out getting fresh crab meat, and it's been a great crab season. And I was one of the things on the menu for this dinner is crab cake, so I bought some fresh Dungeness crab meat. Wow, it is spectacular right now.
We do not eat enough Dungeness.
At your house,
it's pristine. Yeah.
I wonder how Hercules would like picking apart a crab. He'd probably get a shell caught in his throat and scream at me or something. But it was spectacular. It made beautiful crab cakes. I just did a little mayo and tarragon and some of our shallot mustard and no other filling in there, just lemon zest, lemon juice, some eggs, and then I just dusted them in panko on the outside, no breading on the inside this time. And so we'll see how they are, because I'm gonna pan fry them in whole butter and
save me one.
Yeah, you have to come to Bainbridge. As a matter of fact, there's a couple. I know you're coming to my house for dinner tonight. There's a couple in the fridge.
Are there?
Yeah,
okay, I'm gonna steal those.
Need to be cooked and eaten. I'm sitting here trying to figure out where I'm going next. It's the farmers markets time, and finally it's starting to warm up. Despite the sun not really being out a whole lot, it's still the thermal units are starting to kick in, and we're starting to see some local greens. But they are dainty, they're sweet this time of year because of the coolness, and we're going to look forward to making a little salad dressing for them when we come back here on the Hot Stove Society Show, 97.3 FM. Way to go, Michael. Don't forget, they're getting paid a breakfast sandwich to clap. That's right. Clap harder.
I actually have greens ready to pick in my garden.
Actually, Loretta, can we bring you in? There you go.
I gotta think of my menu on the fly here.
You did what?
I gotta think of my menu on the fly here. But if I say it, then I'm really gonna have to make it for Ben on.
Or a variation.
Hey, Chef Terry, if you're on YouTube watching us, why don't you text us and say hi? Or Pamela. Hopefully they're both.
I'm sure Pamela.
Hanging together.
Edna Mo's being especially nice this morning with you guys not here. She's suspiciously nice. She's up to something. That's right, Sean. You know her best. The good news is she made breakfast for about 12 people this morning, and not one person died.
I had those hand pies yesterday. Lunch. So good.
Had the turkey and ham one this morning. Very delicious.
Really good.
I
thought it was mushroom this morning.
There's a mushroom and kale one that was so good.
Oh, maybe
here's two.
Hand pie.
Oh, great. Oh. Hi, Jim. Welcome. If you, I'll say that on the air. And we're back to the Hot Stove Society Show. Loretta Douglas sitting in for Chef Terry, the chef in the chapeau. My name is Tom Douglas, and I'm happy to be your host today. We have a few of our regulars watching us on YouTube, which you can also if you go to, Michael, how do they get there?
So just go to YouTube and then type in Tom Douglas. You'd probably be able to find it quickest that way. But you can also do www.youtube.com/Tom Douglas and Company. All one word, lowercase.
And look for Hot Stove Society Radio, right?
Yeah. You'll see it. It'll pop up.
It'll pop up for you. Okay.
Make sure to like and subscribe.
It's free, for God's sake. It's free.
Marketing manager over here.
Spring greens. Now, this is a time where people often want to do salads. I love them as a quick saute. Like if I'm making a quick little baby spinach or something the first of the season, it's good. I mean, I love a good spring green salad, but they collapse really easily. And so in a quick saute, I just collapse them normally.
Mm-hmm.
And then I like them warm with olive oil and lemon and pine nuts and currants or little things like that. But it takes so many to make enough.
I know. You'd think you have this bounty. I pick it out of my garden and I'm like, man, I'm going to feed 7 people with this. And
Not the case.
1.5 people later.
But on a regular salad, if you don't cook them up or if you don't give them a light wilt, you can go much further with them. You have a favorite dressing?
You know, I think I make vinaigrette to this day the way that you taught me. It was one of my...
Well, maybe you should tell folks and I can tell you if you learned it correctly.
It was one of my kind of regular jobs when we were making dinner when I was growing up because my mother hates making salad dressing. And so I think you taught me and then I took it on, but I still stick pretty close to olive oil. I like either the shallot mustard or the tarragon mustard, a little bit of that, a little bit of honey. If I have some fresh herbs, chop up those. If I have a shallot, I will mince up a shallot.
A little bit of shallot.
A little bit, not a lot. And then a vinegar of your choice, sometimes balsamic, sometimes I do red wine, sometimes.
Yeah. This time of year, I would say stick to the
light champagne
light
vinegar.
Vinegars. Yeah, for sure. And just make a little bit lighter and brighter salad dressing. The other thing I like to do when I'm doing baby greens at this point is I like to send the dressing on the side to the table because it literally takes a minute. And, you know, when Kenji Lopez Alt was on, he explained that I always had blamed the lemon juice for kind of cooking the greens really quickly. He says on something like that it's the olive oil that dampens and crushes the greens because it's such a heavy viscosity on top of the light greens. They just can't stand up to it. It's so simple to just send a little ramekin of salad dressing on the side to the table. And now, I mean, after eating in Vietnamese restaurants now for the last 30 plus years, I never serve a little salad like that. To me, part of the greens is basil leaves, Thai basil leaves, tarragon leaves, mint leaves, whole parsley leaves. That is at least 20% of my salad. And then I put in the Mizuna greens, the pea vines, the mustard greens, the amaranth, the red leaf amaranth, the sour sorrel, little things like that. Spinach, if you want some bulk.
Treat your herbs as a green in your salads for sure.
So that to me is the better way to go for this time of year. There's some greens out there that I would suggest that you look for at the farmer's market because that's where you're not going to find them at a grocery store. But the katsuma and the bacana are both fun, tasty greens that you don't see in a grocery store, but it's fun when you're shopping at
I just found some really beautiful little micro pea shoots at our farmer's market in Magnolia, and I love to throw those in.
I love to throw them in too, but they have zero bulk. I mean, those, but they're more like an herb when you
but
use
they're
them
crisp and I treat them like I would basil or mint or something like that.
When I'm sauteing greens like that, I buy a big bag of baby spinach or whatever that is, you know, it reminds me of how hard it is to harvest that stuff. If you drive through the San Joaquin Valley of California, I'm not sure how they do it up here because a lot of these babies are local now, but they literally have tractors that have wings on them and people lay down on their belly on the wings. They're in like a little bit of a harness and they are literally laying down with their head facing the ground with their scissors in their hands and harvesting, like, picking strawberries, harvesting the baby greens, so that it's ergonomically much better for them than the bend over like they do asparagus, right?
That is
The
crazy.
bending over
Yeah.
and but
yeah, and then you get your
when I see
bag
a
of
big bag of
spinach.
spinach like that, I realize how hard people work
Cooks down to one portion.
yeah, just to pick that stuff. So biggest mistake I think people make when they're doing a little bit of a quick saute on greens, too much garlic.
Yeah.
People are still bitten by the Emerald Lagasse, more is better garlic, or more is better chili, or more is better spice.
I
kind of
prefer
bug.
to actually like crisp my garlic and olive oil separately, and then I add it at the end, a little crispy garlic over top, because
Right.
that way I can really control how much I'm getting in there.
Right, and it's toasty good, and it adds a crunch, just like in chili crunch. But then you're sautéing in garlic oil, right? Which is
I do them separately.
you don't use the oil that you crispen the garlic in to sauté in?
Sometimes, but like you said, it gets too much too really quick.
garlicky?
So sometimes I just keep it separate, or I'll keep a little bit just in my fridge.
So when I get my pan going, you have to have a very large pan. You have to have a good heat. You get it going. You don't get it to smoke, but you get it hot, and you pop your greens in, and I pull the pan off the heat right at that point, because you can't cool the pan down, and the greens are just going to want to. You can always put the pan back on. Pardon me, but you're going to want to get your greens turned really quickly. Just get a wilt, get the pan off the heat. They're going to continue to cook all the way to the dinner table. You'll see at the bottom of the bowl, like your spinach service bowl, by the time you get to the dinner table, if you've done it incorrectly, if you've left too much heat on the greens, it's going to be a pool of spinach water at the bottom, right?
Yeah.
And the whole idea is that you're just doing a light wilt, and that the spinach leaves retain most of their moisture, and they're just kind of dressed in your garlic and your oil and a squeeze of lemon. So it's a tough thing to master. It seems so simple, but almost everyone overcooks them. Yeah. Are the other green that I love to cook that I think people think needs more time is chard, like ruby chard. So when I take the nice leaves off the ruby stems, I'll cook the stems first, and I'll just saute them until they're tender, pull them out, and then I'll just quick sear the ruby chard leaves, and it's very different, right? And the other thing is, when you're doing that, don't do the whole leaf. Yeah. Right? Because you end up with this stringy mess trying to eat at the dinner table.
When you're eating it, and it's down to your chest, because
it's really gross.
Yeah.
And then it gets caught in your teeth, and then people don't want to have dinner with you anymore. So I would say, if you're going to plant greens, try and plant them in a pot that's higher up, so you're not bent over trying to scissor cut these things all the time. And they will grow back during a spring like we've been having. They'll once you take your first flush, they generally will grow back. It's not till the hot.
Trim around the outer, leaves as soon as they're ready. If I have 15 plants, I'll just take the outer leaves off each of them, and then they come back and keep going.
But you'll see, as soon as we hit that 80 or 90 degree mark, they'll start to bolt, and you'll be done. And you plant them again in the fall. Is the way to go. All right, Father's Day menus coming up. What are you going to make for your dad? Are you telling me that you're not going to make something for your dad? What are you saying right now about your love and care for your treasured parent? It's Tom and Loretta in the Hot Stove Society kitchen right here on Cairo Radio 97.3 FM. You can go
Earlier? All right.
Clap us out.
In and out.
Him out. All right. Father's Day menu.
Just so you know, when we talk about Danica Noble coming up, we pre-taped that when she was in the kitchen last week. So.
Radio Magic will fill that in, but we won't have it today.
I also love all the
with you, right, Loretta?
special radio effects that they add in later.
We're going to bring you some of our shallot mustard. It's really good.
I know what I'd make for Ben. I know. Everything that I want for Father's Day dinner, I want you to cook.
Well, say that. That's cool too. You're going to be cooking dinner tonight, apparently. You and your mom. I did a lot of the prep for it, but
What are we having?
Cowboy steaks, baked potatoes, asparagus. Huh? Oh yeah.
Oh.
Best palate in the family.
Well, your godmother is being very kind to you this morning.
I heard that on the previous show. That Tom said you have the best palate in the family, and you'll never let him.
I will never let him forget. He said it one time.
I said it for 1 minute when she was 2 years old.
Stuck with her.
Yep.
All right. Well, it felt like every time I would let her sip my wine, she would say, that's corked. Well, it tastes fine to me.
And it was corked.
And she was fine.
It's like 2 in a row that you picked up on that I hadn't. When you're drinking corked wine, you always think it's going to blow off. It'll be better. And then you kind of forget about it. And then somebody else drinks it, and it doesn't. It gets worse as it stays open. Yeah. Hey, Annie, our sandwiches are getting super cold.
Does Bavarian Meats still have a brick and mortar somewhere?
I don't think so. There was talk that they were going to open them down in Renton, but I don't think it's happened.
Is there another place
you can leave it in the jar?
Is there another place you can find those like Kessler chops?
Somebody told me but somebody told me that Easton Cleaver was doing a Kessler chop.
You do it all over there.
Wow, now that's service.
Dollop.
You're supposed to show them the label. That's my treasured mustard.
Use it on my roast chicken.
Do you?
Yep.
So good. Like mustard, butter together under the skin.
I do the mustard with some chopped thyme and the Rub with Love mushroom rub. Sometimes I mix a little bit of turkey rub in with that.
I love the turkey rub.
You're welcome.
I can't believe you're getting a sandwich with truffle cheese on it. I won't like you.
Well, our truffle cheese that we use over there is real truffles.
Yeah.
Truffle oil that I. All right, YouTubers, you should be really jealous now that you're not here. Dahlia Bakery sandwich.
Gotta come in person.
Sign up on our website, www.hotstovesociety.com/classes.
All right, it's time for Father's Day. Happy Father's Day to all the dads out there. This is the Hot Stove Society show coming to you from downtown Seattle, 4th and Virginia, right here in Midtown, I would call this area. It's Father's Day. I'm going to ask Michael, is your father still alive?
No, he's no longer with us, unfortunately.
Yeah, mine too. What would you be making for your father today if he was with us?
Well, my father was pretty easy and preferred a combination pizza. So I would be
Not
ordering
where
that.
I thought you were going with that.
And then
combination of what?
So
Hawaiian
like
and pepperoni? Or?
Well, actually, he did love a Hawaiian pizza, the ham and pineapple. But, the traditional combo, pepperoni, sausage, peppers, onions, olives, mushrooms. And he would pair that with a fine vintage of 7-Eleven's finest Slurpees.
He was a non-drinker.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Can't imagine how you grew up to be such a gourmand.
A foodie.
Actually, I didn't. It took quite a while, and it took my parents not being interested in food very much at all. My mother never really used any spices when she cooked, and pepper is too spicy for her. So growing up with a bland palate, everybody would always introduce me to new things, and some of those things stuck, some of them didn't. But kind of opened my eyes more to what is actually out there after leaving home. And wow, there's a lot. And now I like fish and cheese, and those are two big items that I never used to like.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And so, would you use one of the Serious Pie pizza crusts to make a combination pizza for him, or what would you do today? A boboli?
No, I would definitely use one of our crusts, because I'm sorry, but the Serious Pie pizza has ruined me for other pizzas. I was recently in New York and I really wanted pizza, but I didn't want New York pizza. I wanted Serious Pie pizza.
Good. My dad is, he wasn't not hard to please. For him, it was meat or all you can eat buffet was his favorite meal. But he was a traveling salesman, and he had a dish that my mother used to make for him that I detested. It was called chili noodles. And he had it, it was very popular, I think, in Cincinnati. And it was kind of a tomatoey, almost brothy kind of chili that was then put over with spaghetti. And it was gross. And he loved it.
That is gnarly.
I mean, it's a variation
I guess
on
chili
on a
mac
bolognese.
or something. People eat. Like,
I
chili
mean,
mac
we
and
had
cheese.
we always had the green can of Kraft grated cheese, and so if you put enough of that on it, maybe it comes out okay. But the chili noodles, I always dreaded the day that she would make that for him. But if I was cooking for him, I would definitely do a rib roast or now. Cowboy steaks are very popular now. So to me, what I like about cowboy steaks compared to say rib roast is that it's the same cut, right? It's just cut from the rib roast, and generally the long bone is left on the rib, but it's the same thing. It's a rib steak on a bone, double thick, but you get char on both sides of that steak. And to me, that's where the flavor is,
that's
right?
That's the thing that I don't love about prime rib. It's like you get no crust, you get no edge on it.
Yeah, unless you get the end piece.
Yeah.
So he would have that, and he would have mashed potatoes, and I don't know. I'd probably make him some
we have his glass
sweet
of
onion gravy.
Manischewitz.
He was a Mogan David man.
David.
I think Manischewitz bought Mogan David, but at his wake, we had spaghetti and meatballs because he would only drink wine when my mom would make spaghetti and meatballs.
I love that.
And then he would have a 2 to 4 ounce glass of Mogan David, which we all had at his wake.
Grape juice.
Well, it tastes like Welch's grape jelly. Yeah, it literally is just unset grape jelly with alcohol in it. And that was his drink for the maybe 4 months before she would make spaghetti again. So those are the kind of things that when you're thinking about your parent, you want to give them what they most love. So what do you suppose, Michael, that my daughter would make for me on Father's Day?
Mopoke dadu.
Mopoke dadu.
Well, I would think that she would make you
happy,
something like you would make for your father, a rib roast or probably a steak.
Let's hear.
A nice sear.
I think I think I would give you the gift of making it for yourself. No, I think the hard part is you are like the grill guy in our family, and I'm not super comfortable on a grill. But
well, we got to fix that.
I know, but most of your favorite things come off of a grill. Mm-hmm. So I think that's where the rub is for me, where I would get, apprehensive about doing a prime rib or a cowboy steak or something like that I know that you would like. It's people tell me all the time in a funny way that they're like intimidated to cook for me because they knew I grew up with good food or things like that. And I never really understand it except for when I go to make meat for you because it's just your thing, I feel.
Well, plus, I love the wood grill, but it's not necessarily steak. I like salmon on the grill. I like a whole duck on the grill, anything on the grill. So
yeah, I'd probably I feel pretty comfortable with salmon. So I would probably do a whole side of salmon and maybe some wilted fresh greens. And
I love my greens.
I know.
Yeah.
Broccoli, you love broccoli. And then maybe a potato.
Yeah, that sounds good. So when is that? Sunday night?
Not Sunday.
Okay.
I got plans.
And so how does that differ than what you would make for your husband? Because I think that seems similar to what you would make for Ben Chaman.
Ben loves a pork chop. So my go-to kind of special occasion food for Ben is a pork chop. And we used to get those Kessler smoked pork chops from Bavarian Meats for all of our, special occasion meals. And he loves them. Those are harder to find now that Bavarian's not in the market anymore. But just a full, big bone-in pork chop. He loves sweet potatoes, so I probably do sweet potatoes. And then I couldn't do it now because they're out of season. In winter, always Brussels sprouts. Now probably broccoli.
Yeah, we had to suffer through 6 months of Brussels sprouts. Anything but for me right now.
Oh,
so.
yeah.
I mean, I like them fine, but asparagus and everything's coming on. So
he loves them. So sometimes even in the summer, he's like, "Can we just have Brussels sprouts?" I say, "No, you have to wait for winter." Not even on Father's Day.
Not even on Father's Day. And then, of course, Hercules loves him a bone, meat on a bone. He loves to. The first one I ever saw him eat was the veal chop at Christmas.
Yeah. He would totally take the pork, the bone out of a pork chop. His absolute favorite food is gnocchi. So, I'm sure if he was cooking for his dad, he'd be like, "Well, we should probably have gnocchi."
But he's not. He likes sausage too, right?
Yeah.
Why not? If you're watching on YouTube right now, why don't you text us what you're going to make for your father for Father's Day? I'd be curious about that because Terry Benson is doing a porterhouse. Annie over here, would you come over here for a second and tell us? I don't know if you actually had Father's Day in Cambodia, Vietnam, China. Your home, but you have it now. What are you going to make for your husband? Annie is one of the chefs here at the Hot Stove and has a more diverse background than many of us. Especially from Asia. We have no Asia in me that I know of. I love cooking. I love cooking that style of food, though. So, what are you going to make for your husband, who's Hungarian? What are you going to make for him for Father's Day? Does he have a favorite?
He likes anything, like Midwest food, mac and cheese, pot pie, those kind of things, but. I do have to work the Father's Day bacon event here this Sunday, so he gets to come to that event, and then I don't have to cook.
That is a really good solution,
I know.
Annie.
What about for dinner, you lazy butt?
I'm pretty sure he'll be hungry from the bacon.
He'll be full, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I don't think he will be. I think he'll be expecting a second opportunity to have your cooking.
I mean, we're trying to cut the calories, one meal a day.
Mm-hmm.
Intermittent fasting just all day.
I'm so sad. I'm sad for him and for your young son.
I mean, he doesn't eat much. He gets to eat my fennel. That's all he gets.
That's all he gets. Well, there's so many delicious things that you could make for your father. The thing that I think people forget about is when they're trying to do something a la minute, they get nervous, right? And so that's why things that are low and slow, like braised items, like to me, a perfect Father's Day dinner for somebody who's a little nervous is something like a beef short rib, where it's very difficult to overcook them. You can start earlier in the day and then just reheat it. You simply put some roasted potatoes in the pan, beef short ribs, a little bit of asparagus, and you've got dinner. But I do find that at the last minute when people are trying to get that steak rare or medium, that they tighten up, or if they're trying to do the pork chop that you're talking about, it's so easy to overcook pork chop.
Mm-hmm.
And you end up with that dry, mealy, white center meat of the pork loin, and it's gross. So low and slow, oven roasted ribs if you don't have a charcoal grill. Just little things to make your life easier and that you can't mess up.
I think we're talking pork shoulder later in the show. That's another great option that you could do.
Yeah, we'll tell you how
myriad of things.
We'll tell you how to make that, or make pork shoulder tacos, or all the different things you can do with that.
Most dads will be happy just to be cooked for. So don't
absolutely
get stressed.
All right, up next, we're going to get an update on the Ukraine refugee situation and World Central Kitchen and what we're going to do to try and continue to make sure people don't forget about Ukraine. I don't see it in the top of the news anymore, but things are tough over there. And so we're still doing benefits, and we're trying to send money to World Central Kitchen. When we come back on Cairo Radio, it's the Hot Stove Society Show, 97.3 FM. Sean, do you remember how much time we had?
Yeah, it's a 6 to 7 minute segment, so we need about a 2 to 3 minute intro. Yeah, so it's this long. Yeah, like 2 to 3 minutes.
I saw one of their supply trains got bombed.
Well,
or shelled.
everything. You ready, Sean? All right, we're back here in the Hot Stove Society Kitchen on Cairo. I'm Tom Douglas.
Loretta Douglas.
And Loretta is sitting in for the chef in the chapeau, who's under the weather. We're happy to have him back from France. And we have a large show to continue with. All right. We're going to catch up on the Ukraine refugee situation. I'm determined to kind of keep this in the news a bit because I know as a country we have a short attention span.
Yep.
And I was surprised at how much time CNN had given it when it first happened, and it was 24/7. And I've watched it over the last 120 days that they've been at it, just get whittled away to almost anything with all the hearings in Washington and all the things going on around the country with high gas prices. All of that stuff matters. I'm not for 1 second saying they don't matter, but World War III matters too.
Yeah.
And what we think of as high gas prices or as things that are more important, believe me, if you look back at the cost of the Second World War, and would only be worse if we don't pay attention to what's going on and try to make sure that we don't empower the regimes that are responsible for this war, that we're going to pay for it in the end, and high gas prices will be the last of our problems. So,
absolutely.
and I'm not preaching. I'm just saying how I kind of look at it. It's like this is important that we stay at this. I know we're sending
people is our business. And,
well, that happens to be
I
what we
think,
can
like,
do.
This is a place that we can make a difference. That anybody can make a difference.
Yeah, exactly. Because I'm not the one that's going to get on the ground over there with an AK-47 and start, fighting on the ground unless that's what it comes to. I know when the World Trade Center was bombed, while I had a difference of opinion of who our president and what our president did, I was ready to sign up. That's 20 some years ago, but I was ready to sign up to do whatever I could do to defend our country. I think people are surprised that I tend to be a left-leaning liberal, but I'm also country first in a funny way. I think, what did we say? We had a conversation, I thought, where I said defense of our country was the number one priority for me. And I think you were surprised at that.
Yeah.
It was high on my list. So we had Danica Noble in here. She had worked in Ukraine before everyone was forced out. All the Americans were kind of forced out, and had friends there, has set up my friends, Janie and Sue, to go over and kind of help with the refugee crisis. They kind of hung out on the Romanian-Ukrainian border. They're now back. They're heading back again in a month.
Again soon, yeah.
Yeah. So we're just trying to figure out what's going on, what we can do to help. For me, it's World Central Kitchen, and hopefully for our listeners, you'll take time out to maybe research World Central Kitchen, maybe make a donation, do what you can do to help feed the over 5 million refugees a day that need food and shelter.
Absolutely.
And clothing. Okay, let's listen to Danica. Then I think we'll just go out. Yeah, unless you want me to do it out. I think I did it out with her. Yeah, I'd like to add to the next segment. Yeah, okay. I don't think we need it. All right.
Hi, welcome.
Hi, I thought we were on the phone with you. Are you surprising us?
No.
Oh. Maybe my show sheet just didn't say that.
It looks like that she does want an out.
Okay. I'm going to do an out just in case. All right, thanks for that update. When we come back, let's do that again. Let's see, where am I going?
Coming up in the second hour. Highlight.
All right, we will continue to include information about how to help the families in Ukraine, because this war is an unjust and tragic, awful situation, and we need to keep our eyes on it. We're proud of our friends like Danica and the Colburns, who are so actively assisting. Coming up in our second hour, Kat Lieu is here with her new book, Modern Asian Baking at Home. Pork shoulder belongs in your menu rotation for its myriad of marvelous uses. And then Father's Day Rub with Love, Food for Thought, Tasty Trivia, right here on Cairo Radio 97.3 FM. Okay, Kat, come on up here. I'm Tom, by the way.
Wow, beautiful.
And this is Loretta, my daughter.
Loretta.
Chef Terry is under the weather today, so he's out.
That's my husband.
Hi, husband.
Chauffeur and butler too.
Chauffeur and
Those
butler.
are all good things.
What is she making you for Father's Day dinner?
Nothing. Sorry.
Wow, that was.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's this camera here, and so just turn your mic towards your face, and then either you come to the mic or bring the mic to you, or both.
They're good.
So about an inch or two is what you want.
Inch or two away from
So
here.
listen to the audience right now. Now listen to me. Now listen to me. You hear the difference?
Yes.
Yeah. So it's just an inch or two from the mic. Wow, treats.
Beautiful.
Chef Terry never brings us treats. You want a job?
Yes, I actually do.
We want you.
Grab some more water really quick.
So I think we'll spend the first segment, which is a little bit shorter, just on how you got around to crowdsourcing and that whole modern way of putting a book together. And then the second segment, we'll start to dig into some recipes and from there. Does that work for you?
Yep.
Maybe a little bit about your bio and.
Perfect.
Yes, indeed. Although it's under our logo, I'm going to put them here.
Are these the miso brownies?
Yeah. The Japanese cheesecake.
And then where's her face? Okay. Let's get her in the picture rather. Yeah. There we go. That's good. Well, let me see her again. That's where I'd like to stay. So.
Perfect.
There we go. Close enough. Beautiful. All right, here we go. You ready? Here we are back in the Hot Stove Society kitchen. Thanks for hanging with us. We've got a full second hour coming your way. We're going to talk pork butt. And what?
And why do they call it a butt?
And why do they call it a butt when
What's
it's
up
actually a
with that?
shoulder? So yeah, we're going to talk about pork butt. We're going to have trivia. We're going to talk to Kat Lieu here about her new book coming out, Modern Asian Baking at Home. There's so much to do. Michael Todd is sitting in for Pamela, who's under the weather, as our producer today. Loretta Douglas is sitting in for Terry Rotaro, who's under the weather, who's our host today.
A show of guest appearances.
And then
today.
there's me, the host with some. You're the hostess with the mostest. I'm the host with some. I'm Tom Douglas. Happy to be with you. Chef owner of a few joints around town. Loretta, you find yourself as kind of the baker in our household. You and your mother are both like that side of the kitchen more than I do, and have become more proficient at it than I am, which is sad to say, but true. What's your favorite kind of thing to bake?
Favorite thing to bake. I love to make pie. I like to make crust. I like filling. I enjoy pie personally more than cake. So I love to make different pies.
Well, we have Kat Lieu here in the house, right here at the third mic in the hot stove kitchen. She's waving on YouTube right now. She's got a new book coming out called Modern Asian Baking at Home. How soon does it come out?
Well, we hit the delays with the global shipping
Uh-huh.
issue. So they're in New York, I think, right now in the harbor, and it'll come out end of July, hopefully.
Lovely. I remember those days 25 years ago when Seattle Kitchen was like, when is it going to make it to the, 'cause
Actual shelves. Yeah, we
it
gotta
was
go
actually
see it.
our first copies were actually printed in New York, and then they moved it overseas for the 15th and 16th printing.
Subtle, humble brag
throwing
there.
that out there. Your new book is put together in a whole different way than when I put my books together, and I'd love to kind of go over that. In the next segment, we're going to jump into some recipes. But how did you get this thing started and finished, honestly? Because the start is one thing, but to finish a book is just as hard.
It is. I think it's more of a magical experience
Mm-hmm.
because I started a group called Subtle Asian Baking. It's on my apron right here. It is now the largest global network all about baking the Asian way.
Mm-hmm.
And we started with 100 of my closest friends in the group in May 2020, blew up to 60,000 members by December 2020. We were featured on Eater, and then Eater, that article got us a book deal from Quarto Books, right? And from there, I polled my members and said, what recipes excite you? What are our most viral trending recipes? And then I thought of all the recipes that I like to eat and bake and brings me comfort, like the Japanese cheesecake, mochi miso brownies, things like that. And I asked my group members, do you like melon pan or do you like pineapple bread? Like, what do you want to see in this book? So from there, I adapted and got inspired by a lot of recipes from group members, and then rewrote all of the recipes, retested them, adapted them, changed up, a lot of the ingredients, and got 23 recipe testers to test from our group from around the world, right? 700 plus members wanted to be recipe testers. So it'll be great for my second book. I already have a whole list
Yes,
of recipe testers, right? So yeah, it was an amazing group effort, right? But of course, all the writing was done during ungodly hours because I was still working remotely as a physical therapist. And, this was early COVID. So my son was at home. So I was doing homeschooling, doing the writing from 12 a.m. to 2 a.m. and then waking up 6 a.m. to 9 a.m. and then doing all the testing during the weekends. But it was a great experience, and I would do it all over again.
Mm-hmm. I kind of think of All Recipes website has a ton of recipes, and people look there for recipes, but they also comment on the recipes. Was it hard to take all the comments? Like when you sent out a recipe you thought was perfect, and your testers came back and said, I think you need to do this.
Tom, I was so stressed out when they told me the recipes flopped, because then we had to rewrite the entire thing. The mochi donuts. I had your own mochi donuts, and we loved them.
Oh, thank you.
I love the chewiness. And so making our own pondering mochi donuts, I had to retest a few times. I was watching a few YouTube videos on how they made it, and then I came up with a blended dough that was using high speed with a paddle attachment on the mixer. So yeah, it was tough and stressful, but then it worked out because I got to test the recipes over and over again, and it made me fall in love with food science.
I find your book to be, and your whole process to be, kind of such an encapsulation of what people have gone through in the last couple of years of the pandemic. The fact that you have these 23 recipe testers from all over the world, I'm assuming, doing this all virtually, and I'm sure texting and Facebook messaging and Zoom calling, all of those things. It's just, the world really changed in the last couple of years. And this book seems like such a, culmination of all of that change, and the way that it came about, I think, is amazing.
Absolutely. It was like, it is a COVID baby, and, we all became very Zoom savvy. We became tech savvy, and the group and these recipe testers are all my friends now, and they all have kudos in the book. And it was just so wonderful. Like I said, it pulled us through this really unprecedented, stressful time. I made friends that I never thought I could, being so isolated in my home, and building this global community. So it was a good thing out of a really bad time.
Now, the title obviously starts with the word modern. Are you suggesting that a lot of the Asian baking that was out there, like when you go down to our international district and you go into some of the Asian bakeries, they are really full of a lot of buckets of icing, bucket fruit fillings, bucket this and that are put together. No offense. I mean, I grew up in a town of Newark, Delaware, where our local bakery did the exact same thing. So what have you changed to make it more current?
So, Tom, I'll be very honest with you. We wanted it to be called subtle Asian baking, but due to market research, they said the word subtle doesn't sell. But now it's very funny. They want another book that's probably going to be called Subtle Asian something, right? Because, if it's new, people are not as excited about it. But we actually do have a great name out there. And as to why we chose modern Asian baking, it's because it's not all traditional baking. So it's not all the traditional things that you have, like the dango or the mochi that you have from Japan. It has fusion things like the Basque cheesecake with matcha and miso in it, right? And then you have your Japanese cheesecake, right? Cheesecake is more of a modern creation, I would say, even though there's been cheesecakes for centuries, right? But different kinds. And then the mochi brownie too.
I love the phenomena of the jiggly cheesecake. Yeah, they're so fun.
The jiggly cheesecake? What do you mean?
Yeah, there's like this whole thing where if it's right and you pull it out, your cheesecake should just like jiggle and kind of have a wobble. And
while it's still warm.
Yes.
But once it sets, right?
Yeah, this one is exactly that one. So if you look at our reel on our Instagram, this was the jiggly one. But because I had to put it in the fridge, because I don't want you guys to get sick, I would have baked it this morning. Yeah, but this is the jiggly cheesecake, but just set.
All right, Kat. Kat Lieu is here. She's going to stay with us for one more segment. We're going to get into some of the recipes in her new book, Modern Asian Baking at Home, and look forward to hearing how many ways you can make mochi, because it's such a flexible ingredient or process. On Cairo Radio, it's the Hot Stove Society Show, 97.3 FM. Our mochi donuts right now are better now than when we started.
I love them.
I was a little concerned in the beginning when they were just a little too wet for me. But now they're right on the money, I think. And
I think so too.
At least the last two that I've had are really right on the money. So.
And they're so pretty too, the aesthetic. It just brought me so much joy. We went into Dahlia Bakery this week after we had serious pie, and I was like, oh my gosh, these are so cute and so pretty. I got 6 of them.
Sweet.
Yeah. Love that chew in there.
I need to bake pies.
I was skeptical of the mochi donut idea. You know,
I forgot that Adrian developed those.
yeah, Adrian's the one who did all that work, and cooking them more. It just felt like you could almost not cook them too much to get a little bit more chew and a little bit more elasticity in the chew, and not just crushing the texture. Sometimes that's what happens when you don't have gluten, right? You end up with just kind of a melting kind of texture, but by beating it longer, I think you get a little bit more of that quality of that more chew. So.
I've never had the beaded ones. There's that place in Wajimaya.
The fried ones, yeah.
Yeah, that they look more like the ones that you have in your book, but I need to get someplace. I heard there's a really good new place in South Lake Union too that's doing.
Is it mochi nut?
Yeah,
mochi nut. There's mochi nut, but I like both mochi and mochi nut.
Yeah, very different.
Need to get to one. Ours
is more like a butter cake and a donut. A butter mochi and a donut
in a ring form. Yeah.
Welcome back to the Hot Stove Society Kitchen on Cairo. We're here with Kat Lieu, the author of the new book coming out probably by July, you said, Modern Asian Baking at Home. If people want to follow along with you and your process, especially for book number 2, because it's so interesting, the crowdsourcing that you're doing on your recipes, where do they go? What website?
Yeah, we have modernasianbaking.com for the website. We also have a group on Facebook called Subtle Asian Baking.
Okay.
And then on Instagram and TikTok, we're at subtleasian.baking.
Cool. So my question, I'm going to start right away, because when I look at your website and things, mochi comes up all over. And I think a lot of Americans still don't know about mochi. People like me I remember the mochi when I was in Kyoto, and where people are, pounding it with hammers on big stones. And that to me was mochi, and grilling it over a charcoal fire. You're using it in so many different ways, the process and the rice flour. Tell us some of your favorite mochi recipes.
Yeah. So one of the easiest one is just putting the batter into the microwave. So mixing mochiko or sweet glutinous rice flour with any kind of liquid. It could be melted yogurt. It could be ice cream. It could even be ube or a sweet potato, and just mix it all in. You could add some tapioca starch, and then you just pop it into the microwave for 30-second bursts until it becomes this goopier, more translucent consistency. And then it's ready. And then you add some oil, and you just knead it and mold it the way you want when it's not so hot to touch, because it could burn your hand right out of the microwave, right? So you could use the same batter, and then you could make it in the stove, right, until it becomes thick like a roux and thickens more and more. Or you could blend everything in a blender, which I'm doing right now, to make my mochi muffins and my mochi cakes. And I use this one batter to make mochi waffles, mochi pancakes, and it's just so versatile and easy. You could put mango in it, you could put blueberries, you could put really anything. So that's what I really love about, making mochi too, this more modern way. So I'm not pounding it with, the pounding things that people do in Japan and so forth, but I'm just either using the paddle attachment of my mixer, or using my own hands, or just using a spatula.
And are you suggesting that you have to make this process that you just talked about to make genuine mochi? Because sometimes with the mochiko flour, that it's just adding the flour, there's really not much to it. But you don't get that mochi texture if you don't do something more with it. Is that true?
Well, you still do get that mochi texture. So with the mochi brownie that I have here, it's very little mixing. And then after, this was done yesterday, after a day, it actually cures and gets chewier, just like your donuts.
Yeah, just like the donuts. Yeah, I always like them on day 2 more than day 1.
Right. The viscoelasticity of, this non-gluten flour is what happens after it absorbs the liquid and so forth. The whole pounding thing, it's tradition. It's authentic to who's making it, right? That's how it was made traditionally, right? Have I learned how to do that from the masters? No, I have not. So I can't say that my mochi is, authentic Japanese mochi, but it will have that texture that you're looking for.
Right. And then you also brought us today a jiggly cheesecake. So tell us about that. It looks purple from here. Is that
Ube?
Yes, it's ube.
ube powder?
Yeah. So this recipe, the Japanese cotton cheesecake or the Japanese jiggly cheesecake, is what brought me so much joy and love to baking the Asian way. Because this is the recipe that I always wanted to perfect. And it took me 3 years to perfect it.
Really?
Yes,
Oh
because
my
it's
God.
leavened with meringue. Right. So this one actually cracks because I changed the recipe a little bit. I used confectioner sugar in the egg whites when I was whipping it to stiff peaks instead of granulated sugar that I usually use. And I put blueberries in the bottom. So it's like Uncle Tetsu or Uncle Ricardo in Japan, who originated all those Japanese cheesecakes right, in the 80s, I believe. So don't quote me on that. And then it's just hard to make because you have to perfect that mixing of that final batter. It has to be like a thick milkshake consistency, and then you pour it in, and then you have to bake it in the bain-marie, so water bath. And then the temperatures, you have to lower it, and then you have to crack it open a little bit. There's just so much going on with this cheesecake that could go wrong. A lot of people get a custard on the bottom because they didn't mix it well enough. So all the meringue rises up to the top, and it's so souffle. Some people pop it out of the oven, and they yell at me, and they say, how come mine collapsed? You have to follow certain steps precisely to the T. But
for this particular one,
yeah,
many of the other recipes I saw look super simple.
Yeah, this one is not. This one is if you do it on your first try and it succeeds, that's magical. That's a miracle. Don't be sad if it doesn't. I failed a lot of times, but it'll still be delicious. And once you get that jiggle, you're going to be obsessed. You're going to want to jiggle it all the time.
It's interesting. It's really caught on. I feel like it originated in Japan, but when I was in Seoul, there was tons of shops selling, hot slices of the jiggly cheesecake. And I've seen it in Hong Kong too. Yep. It's really all over. It's this awesome, fluffy, I think the cottony name for it is like the perfect name. It is just that like fluffy, delicious
We need to make this.
Yeah.
Tom, we need to sell this and make this.
Are you looking at me?
Yes.
Yes, I'm all for it. I mean, this is a work of art. To me, it almost, you say it cracked, but to me, because of the way the sides are kind of cracked also, it looks like this intentional vintage treatment. Like it's somebody would paint that on their wall that's kind of fake, the faux cracks and stuff. It seems so perfect.
That is so kind.
It's got a little gold leaf on it. And so it's super tasty. You have said that you've called one of your recipes the queen of gluten-free milk bread, and milk bread is really popular these days, and it's gluten-free is big for many people. Tell us about making milk bread.
Milk bread is another love of mine. So I was always afraid of making bread. I actually make cookies and everything else before I made bread. I made French macarons before I made bread because I thought it would be so hard. But then once you get the elasticity going on, once you knead it to the point of window painting that dough, it's, again, I'm going to use this word, it's magical just to bake bread, right? To understand the proteins and the gluten structures and so forth. I've actually perfected a milk bread that doesn't require any kneading or any tangjeon or udane method, so it doesn't need that water roux. It's all about fermentation, letting that dough rest in the refrigerator overnight up to 48 hours, and it comes out the same exact way as any of my milk breads that's been kneaded for like 20 plus minutes in the stand mixer, right? And the gluten-free one, I call it the queen of gluten-free milk bread only because now I want to promote myself a little bit more. I've always been so demure, being Asian American female, and I never promote myself. So now I'm saying, I'm a good recipe writer and I'm a good food writer. So why not give it a good name? Right.
Own it.
Right.
I'm dying to make that savory, the miso savory milk bread rolls.
Yes.
Those look insane in the book. That's going to be the first thing I make, I think.
So again, let's go back to the milk bread. We only have a minute. So if there's something else you want to get in there, a recipe that you want to share, please. But the milk bread, like out of Fuji Bakery, I'm not sure if theirs is milk bread or if it's if they have gluten in theirs.
Yes,
they do. And you're just the one I'm looking at on here. It has no gluten.
No, yes, because I want to be inclusive in my recipes so that people who are vegan, who are gluten-free, celiac, can all enjoy milk bread. That's a lot of people say that. I miss milk bread the most now that I have celiac disease.
Oh, really? That's interesting. But you don't have any of those. You're just a thoughtful young lady.
I want to be more sustainable in my eating, so I'm trying to move towards more vegetarianism myself, but I respect whatever people eat and their choices.
Okay. Anything else you want to get in about your new book? When are you going to do a signing?
Yeah.
You're going to come here and teach a class?
I want to. Please hire me. I'm freelance right now.
Oh, yeah.
Yay. I'll be at Book Larder August 4th.
Okay.
With World Spice Merchants. I'll be at World Spice Merchants in October, and I'll have a signing in New York City at UME Bookstore.
Fun.
Well, and you'll be here at some point teaching a class at Hot Stove.
Exactly.
Excited.
Kat Lieu has been our guest. Modern Asian Baking at Home is her book. If you want to see what she looks like, she's very, very popular and very subtle. When we come back here on the sorry about that, Sean Dottori, if you'll fix that for me, that would be great. When we come back, it's time. Let's do that again, Sean. When we come back, it's time to put a pork butt in the oven. What the heck is a pork butt if it's not a butt? On Cairo Radio, it's the Hot Stove Society Show, 97.3 FM.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
So much fun.
Those brownies are
Kat, are you going to cut this, or what are you going to do? Yeah, let's share with our guest out there.
So there's miso in these too? They're delicious.
Mochi is such a nice shelf life extender.
Pork shoulder. I like it. It's getting long again.
It's so quiet here without Chef Terry singing and dancing, and Pamela. Michael, Pamela would have had that cake cut about an hour ago. No, I mean, I don't know if I can do this still now, but so it's almost got a marshmallow texture, huh? Funny way. Yeah.
When I had them in Seoul, they were baked in like huge pans, and they'd pull them out and you'd just slice you a square and hand it over to you. They're so good. I got it like every day I was there. It was right next to the hotel we were staying at.
Tasty.
Thanks, Michael.
Mm-hmm. And is this something that you want to do a business out of, or were you joking? Oh, okay. Well, I just think that doing a business of it is a certain commitment that some people aren't aware if they've never run a business.
Is there anyone making it in Seattle?
They do, but they sell it in a Guatemala
Ah.
for like $30, but it's never jiggled. So they don't have that magical experience where Loretta was saying you see it pull out.
So even when it's warm, it still keeps us.
Oh, it's wobbly. Yeah, you pull it
Oh,
out, and the
I
whole
see.
thing is like, yeah. That's so good. As I just like inhaled it. That's right up my alley. I love things that are that texture.
Yeah,
That like fluffy.
you do. Like lobako. You know what lobako is? The rice turnip cake. Yeah. Or nor my guy, the sticky rice.
Mochi, sticky,
Anything sticky like that. Wow, it really jiggles. Oh, really? Nice.
Yeah. So when you refrigerate it, it kind of like solidifies a little bit. Okay. Yeah.
Can you do it at all savory, like with goat cheese, say, or? No. Well, I'm just asking. I haven't done it. I haven't tried it.
Scallion would be done.
Well, my thing is that it's hard to make money without cocktails. So if there's a way to make it more savory for the evening time, and people. Mm-hmm. I'm talking savory. I'm talking like a, yeah, you know.
I actually don't know why pork shoulders called pork butt, so I'm excited to learn.
Did you look that up? Why is it called?
It's something to do with the way that they stored it. The barrels, I think, were called butts. Let me fact check that.
Should have been in our trivia today. This picture of him yesterday just absolutely kills me.
It's a great picture, but the one of him waving goodbye was really
My
funny.
God.
Where he kind of walked back up the steps because he got distracted, and
I also liked this in my boots.
From our friends at Serious Eats.
Oh,
We'll save
Save
that.
it.
hold the phone.
All right.
Don't give away the house, Michael.
All right, it's the Hot Stove Society show. We're back in it. We're in downtown Seattle at the Hotel Andra. If you're looking for a landmark, we're right across the street from the Dahlia Bakery and right above Lola at 4th and Virginia there. So we're going to talk about pork butt. And
Shoulder.
Michael has done some research to find out why they call it pork butt when it's not really the butt.
That's right.
It's really the shoulder.
Yeah, so from our friends at SeriousEats.com, they say that in colonial New England, butchers packed inexpensive cuts of meat into large barrels called butts for storage and transportation. And that's where the name comes from those barrels. And the name just kind of stuck, so that's why they call it that.
That's why you often see it called Boston butt.
Yeah.
Pork butt. And it's funny because the pork shoulder is often the hind leg where the ham is, the picnic part of the pig. So, by the way, I'm Tom Douglas.
I'm Loretta Douglas.
And Loretta, I don't think I mentioned that you're the general counsel for our company. People are going to wonder why you're so articulate growing up in my household, but you actually went to school.
I did get some education until I got sucked back in.
At your own choice, by the way.
At my own choice.
At your own choice. So we're going to talk about pork shoulder or pork butt or Boston butt, or what I consider, I call it the best value cut in the meat case, because it's often $3 a pound, now maybe $4 a pound. And it's hard to overcook. It's just easy to work with, but
versatile. Yeah.
Versatile. It's intimidating though, because it's often you see it in there in a 3 or 4 or 5 pound, or even the whole butt, which is more like between 7 and 10 pounds of a roast, and people don't know quite what to do with it. So, have you ever made it? Have you ever made a whole Boston pork butt?
Probably not a whole, but I've made like in that 3 to 5
in that chunk
pound
size
range. Yeah.
So when you see it, you'll find it 2 different ways in the grocery store. One is bone in and one is boneless. And if you're buying the whole thing bone in, it's simply the blade bone from the shoulder of the pig. We have one in our own bodies, the shoulder blade, and that's what that is. It's also often seen in grocery stores as country style pork ribs, because
interesting. I didn't know that those were related.
when you look at those, they're cut about 1 inch wide and they're cut across the butt. And so you get a little bit of that blade bone in your country style pork ribs. And some of your country style pork ribs are boneless because the blade is just a small part of the big bone or the big roast. And some have the little bits of the blade bone in it. So that's what a country style pork rib is. Sometimes you'll see them sliced super thin for stir fries or of that nature. And that's about most of the ways you're going to find them. When I buy a whole one, I like to take the bone out myself just because I'm a cook. That's what's fun to me. But I often cut them, if I'm making them, say, for tacos, I often take a 7 to 10 pound pork butt and cut it into 4 pieces. And I rub the whole thing all the way around as those 4 pieces. Because why?
It's just a way to get more seasoning into them.
More crust.
More crust
On the outside of, because when I'm eating my tacos, I don't want just a bunch of inside meat. The same reason I don't love pulled pork in that way, because the outside of the pork is the most flavorful, seasoned part. And when you have pulled pork, you end up with a lot of the interior meat, which is fine. It's delicious.
You and I have always differed that way. Like, I love shredded chicken, shredded pork, like meat like that. And I love a good pulled pork sandwich. Whenever we would go get barbecue, you were always straight for the ribs, and I was straight for the.
But I don't mind a pork sandwich. Yeah. I just will cut it and roast it in smaller chunks and then chop it so that every part of that sandwich has a bit of the outside in it. So I happen to make a spice rub that goes deliciously on the pork butt. So I really lather it up with spice rub, and then I cook it low and slow. So between 300 and 325 for the whole roast. And you really, this is hard because you're such a weenie butt when it comes to any sort of fat, but you have to reincorporate the fat. When you roast the whole pork butt, or even a chunk of it, it's going to have fat on the interior. And to kind of pull the meat off, get rid of the fat, and now you have this, right? No, you chop the whole thing up and you redistribute the fat so there's an equal amount of fat throughout the pork butt. So if you want to think about it this way, when you buy a hamburger, you can buy it lean, which is usually somewhere around like 90 or 85 to 15% meat to fat. Or your regular burger is usually 80% or 75% meat to fat. What are they doing with the fat? They're redistributing it all the way around the ground meat, right? And that's all I'm saying to do, whether it's beef brisket or whether it's a pork shoulder or butt. You want to redistribute that fat so that it's equal portions and it moistens the whole rather than only having the lean stuff to choose from. So I know that makes you twisted, but you're going to have to get over that. Here's a young woman that's in the restaurant business that for the most of her life growing up, nothing on her plate could touch. Like if you had mashed potatoes over here, the steak would be 6 inches away on the other side of the plate. Just saying. I
like my flavors separate. It's not that I don't eat everything on the plate. I just prefer to enjoy them one at a time.
Yeah, we needed a 24-inch platter to make her happy so that we could have everything on the outskirts and not run into each other.
And that was the birth of the rainbow plate.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly. Okay, so of all the things I talked about, you like pulled pork the best. I like pork tacos the best.
Yeah.
And that's an easy thing to do, right? Because it's the same as pulled pork. I don't love pulled pork because it's too stringy for me. I like chopped pork.
Yeah, you don't like when it gets shredded too fine.
Yeah. Or when it's overcooked and it gets mealy.
Yeah.
But I like it chopped and with a knife so that I don't have long strands of pork. Which when you pull pork, essentially you're supposed to use a couple of forks.
Yeah, you use 2 forks
and you shred
it. Yeah.
So that's just, you often see that in tamales or something. So there's a million ways to use this. Like the most versatile cut in the case just happens to be the best value in the case at the same time. So pork tacos, making a little tamale filling. If you've never made tamales, it's a great Saturday project where you're going to make your masa and get it all set. And I use a ton of butter or pork lard in my masa, but they take an hour to an hour and a half to steam. But you have to make the filling. There's just all sorts of fun things you can do with the pork when it comes to that.
I know many people, this is going to make you twitchy, but many people will do their pork shoulder in the Instant Pot and pressure cook it. If you are shredding it down for like pulled pork where you don't necessarily, people aren't used to getting that crust on it in that application, goes pretty quick.
Right.
And then you just shred and can add your sauce if you're feeding a crowd.
Feeding a crowd. And that's also where, David Chang got very well known at Mamafuko for all the different things he did, but his Bo Sam, where it's kind of like red pork, Chow Ching Chow, who's an instructor here and has the book Chinese Soul Food, does a lot of that red pork in her cooking and in her menu lineup, and always pork butt in that scenario. How about the Cubano? Super popular, right? That is the roasted pork with sliced ham.
With ham, right?
Right.
Yeah.
It's actually a Florida sandwich. It's not a Cuban sandwich, but it was made popular in the Cuban community down there in Florida.
I like the idea of a simple ragu with pork. I think a lot of people are used to making like a pot of cut or shredded chicken that they then use kind of all week long. If they're meal prepping, you can use it in 100 different ways. And I think some people, like you say, see the pork in the case and are intimidated by that. But really, you could make the exact same kind of neutral seasoned pork shoulder and keep it. And, Tuesday night you have it in pasta sauce, and Wednesday night you have it in tacos, and just use it all week long.
Do you know where one of the most popular dishes we've ever put on a menu in our restaurants is at the Palace Kitchen? And we had the pleen, the little tiny pinch raviolis.
Perfect food.
Martha used to braise her pork butt in milk for about 4 hours on the bone. It was just beautifully done. There'll never be another dish quite like it. But charred pork, Reggiano Parmesan, and braised in milk really made a beautiful pasta filling, ravioli filling. And I miss her terribly. I've been trying to find Martha. I cannot find her anywhere. So
our pasta.
Well, not just need our pasta, but I need to see how she's doing. She worked with us for 25 plus years. Yeah, absolutely. Pork pot pie, do a whole roasted pork with black beans, or make a pork verde chili, where you use that kind of braised pork butt and make a little
enchilada filling.
Yeah,
with
there's just
verde.
a million ways to use this, and it's one of those kinds of ingredients that it's hard to mess up. So get out there and give it a shot, and it's really the best priced value meat in the marketplace. All right, when we come back, it's time for Rub with Love Tasty Trivia. I'm not sure if Kat Lieu wants to jump in, or if Annie Elmore is going to jump in, or what's going on over here. I'm looking at Kat. She's going to think about it over the break. On Cairo Radio, it's the Hot Stove Society Show, 97.3 FM. You want to jump in and play trivia? Yes, you do. Okay, Annie, you're off the hook. Finally, you're not going to lose.
She beat you 2 weeks ago.
Hey. Nobody knew that until you said that. Come on up. Have a chair right where you were. Good. I like that. Perfect. Loretta's going to go first so you can see how the game is played. Are you working the bakery today, T? Oh, yeah? One of those days?
Yeah.
I'm at Seatown after this, and then at the theater.
Oh, yeah? Theater short tonight?
No, I just need to help them out with their digital signage.
Oh.
I'm opening Seatown tomorrow. That should be interesting.
For who?
For Gretchen.
Oh, she's sick?
No, she just needs some time.
Needs time off. Saturday morning at Seatown. Prepared.
I'm nervous.
All right, we're going to wrap this up.
All right.
Michael, you feeling good?
I'm ready. I was practicing my announcer voice all evening.
Did Pamela write any of these? Are these all Becky Guzak questions?
I believe I don't know. I'm not sure 100% either way, but maybe it was a combination of the two.
We are back in the Hot Stove Society kitchen here on Cairo Radio. It's time for Food for Thought, Rub with Love, Tasty Trivia. Let's do that again, Sean. Not this Sean. Sean, who's listening right now. We are back. It's time to play Rub with Love Food for Thought Tasty Trivia right here on the Hot Stove Society Show. Food for Thought Tasty Trivia is brought to you by our very own Rub with Love spice blends and sauces. As chefs, we are always looking for unique ways to build flavor and keep your pantry stocked with spices as a valuable tool. Our Rub with Love brands have a wide range of flavor profiles, so why not collect them all? I think there's 19 now. We're available all around Puget Sound, around the country, 5,000 different retail stores, including Hagen's stores with locations in Bellingham, and Woodinville and Olympia, B&E Meats on Queen Anne and in Des Moines, and also Natural Pantry in Anchorage, Alaska. All right, the way this game is played, do you know how this game is played, Mike?
I've listened to the show quite extensively, and I do know how the game is played.
How is it played?
We have 5 questions for each of our contestants today, and you'll be playing for our winner, who is Jolene. Jolene.
Jolene.
That's right. I mean, and I'm sure she's tired of hearing that.
Yeah. Dolly Parton is not tired of collecting royalties on that, though.
I think that's all you can sing without having to pay them.
Yeah.
And then she'll get to build a custom 3-pack from our Rub with Love wall. But each of the contestants will get 5 questions, and the loser will pay. Well, there's no shipping, but that's usually how
today.
it works.
But they have to walk it over to Jolene.
Yeah, you'll have to be Jolene's personal assistant.
Kat Lieu has decided to stay and try her hand at our tasty trivia. The author of Modern Asian Baking at Home. Loretta, you want to go first?
Sure.
Okay.
All right, for Loretta.
Let's wipe everybody out before they get a chance.
Name a famous father who named his daughter Apple.
Chris Martin.
That's right. The lead singer of the band Coldplay. That's right. Ding, ding, ding.
Oh, I forgot to mention Becky Guzak wrote these questions.
Okay. Is that a Becky
good friend
Guzak
of
question?
our hot stove and of the show?
Yeah, thank you, Becky. All right. Question number 2. In 1966, President Lyndon B. Johnson issued the first presidential proclamation honoring fathers, designating the 3rd Sunday in June as Father's Day. What was a processed food that was invented that same year? Was it number 1, cheese in a can, number 2, instant oatmeal, number 3, Doritos, or number 4, all of the above?
All of the above.
That's correct. It was all of the above.
Wow.
All right.
2 for 2.
Number 3, who was the ancient Greek physician who is regarded as the father of modern Western medicine and was quoted, "Let thy food be thy medicine." Let thy medicine be thy food. Sorry, that was the correct quote.
Ancient Greek physician?
Mm-hmm. And possibly philosopher? Maybe not.
You're an attorney. You should know this.
That's Latin. I have no idea.
It was Hippocrates.
Hippocrates.
Yes. This quote, although thousands of years old, acknowledges the importance of healthy eating and how nutrients in various foods have healing properties.
Thank you.
All right. Question number 4. If you are making Dad a butter-basted ribeye, when do you start adding the butter?
3/4 of the way through.
Sure, we'll give you that one. Yeah, that sounds good. After you have formed the crust by heating the steaks with oil in a cast iron skillet, I'd say that's about 3/4 of the way through.
Oh
It's
my
great.
goodness.
near the finishing process.
You're as bad as Pamela.
You don't want your butter to burn, so it has to be.
That's right. 3/4 of the way. All right. Question number 5. What beverage do fathers drink in Germany on Men's Day?
Men's Day. Hefeweizen.
Hefeweizen is a beer, and that is the correct answer. In Germany, Father's Day is celebrated differently from other parts of the world. Männertag, or Men's Day, is celebrated by getting drunk with wagons of beer and indulging in regional food.
Sounds like a delight. Let's go there.
Sounds like
When I went to
every day in Germany.
Oktoberfest in Munich, they made me drink a shot of peppermint schnapps in between each beer. I have never felt that way before. Okay, Kat, it's your turn. Are you ready?
Yes.
You understand the game now?
Yes.
Okay.
All right, Kat.
Loretta got 4 out of 5. She's going to be hard to beat.
Yep.
Oh,
I suck at trivia.
that's okay. These questions may or may not be skewed toward your favor. All right. Father's Day begins with the letter F. What cooking technique or term begins with the letter F?
Frying.
Yep, fry is on the list. We got fry, flambe, ferment, frost, foam, fillet, fondue, and so many more. Okay, number 2. Who has been named the father of American cooking? We'll give you a little hint here. Tom Douglas has one of his awards, maybe.
James Beard.
That's correct.
One?
Several? A couple? All right, quickly moving on to number 3. What herb is called the father of herbs? I'll give you a hint. It's also the name of a little rascal.
That's not an herb,
Okay.
is it? Alfalfa?
Look
Alfalfa. I heard alfalfa.
Oh,
And that's correct.
and that's
All
called the
right.
father of herbs?
Yes.
I
No
thought it was
kidding.
time.
Alfalfa, the leaves of
Father
the
time.
alfalfa have 8 amino
How appropriate
acids.
that her husband and the father of, well, I don't know that, but it helped her with that.
I didn't cheat.
That's right. She phoned a friend. Or use a lifeline. Okay. Question number 4. True or false? Julia Child's father was French.
True.
Unfortunately, that was
False.
false. John McWilliams Jr. was born and grew up in Illinois. Okay.
Just like Honest Abe.
That's right. All right. Question number 5. Can you make brownies or mochi brownies on a charcoal grill after you cook Dad a steak?
Of course you can.
That's right. Yes,
Sure.
you can. After
Sure
you're done
you can.
grilling dinner,
Kat
prepare the
says you can.
brownies
Yeah.
on the grill by adding a few more lumps of charcoal to maintain the grill temperature.
Nice
Wow,
job.
another
Daddy.
4 out of
That's
5.
That's a tie.
This
4 out
is
of 5.
this is tough. It's
Not
tough
looking-
sledding around here.
Not looking good for you.
No.
Okay, Tom. Question
Thanks,
number 1.
Becky, in advance. Thank you so much.
When does a joke become a dad joke?
When I tell it, because it's always funny unless I tell it.
That is a
Unless.
really good answer to that question.
When it becomes apparent.
Ah,
Okay, I'm sure they added that in.
that could have been a mom joke too, though. So it's not really.
There have been 2 sets of father-son presidents of the USA. Name them all.
Both sets.
Yeah,
Well, the Bushes for sure,
that's right. Yep, that's one
and
set.
father son. We'll say there's John Quincy Adams and the Adams family.
Yeah, we'll give it to you. You got that. The John Adams and John Quincy Adams,
Yeah.
and then George Bush, and then George Bush. George
Wow,
W.
that was brilliant.
Brilliant.
I didn't even go to college.
All right. Dinner time for the parents who had the most children ever recorded was very hectic. How many children did they have?
Ever recorded by a single set of parents.
Yeah, how many? Yeah.
I would say they had 27 children.
Unfortunately, it is a little higher. The world record for having the most number of children officially recorded is 69.
Hmm.
How appropriate.
Holy moly, that is a lot of children.
The wife gave birth to 16 pairs of twins, 7 sets of triplets, and 4 sets of quadruplets. Wow.
Wow.
All right, question number 4. Please name the 2 most popular types of pork ribs.
Country style pork ribs, St. Louis style pork ribs, baby back pork ribs.
Yeah, I think they're all in there.
Yeah.
Spare ribs is probably one of those 2.
Yeah.
All right, we'll give you that one. Ding, ding,
St. Louis
ding.
are spare ribs,
Okay, there you go.
just with the tips cut off.
And then our last question, number 5. What was the first solid food Loretta ate heartily?
Heartily. Mo poke dadu.
I knew that was coming.
That was such a gimme.
That was such a gimme.
All right.
That was actually her first sentence.
Well, in a tie for first, we have Loretta and Kat. And maybe Tom.
Boy, I got no respect.
Well, you didn't get
Congratulations.
the first one. No, you didn't get the second one. So yeah, no, you're
Congratulations
you're
to Jolene, our winner here, one of the people who sat through this amazing show. Jolene Michael, thank you so much. If you want to be part of the show, you can join the community on YouTube Live at Tom Douglas & Co. or buy a ticket to join us here in the studio like Jolene did at hotstovesociety.com. You're listening to us on Cairo Radio. The show is produced by today Michael Todd in Pamela's place, Sean McFadden, and our editor is Sean Don't Call Me Del Torre. And remember, if you miss any episode of our Hot Stove Society show on Cairo, you can listen via podcast. Just subscribe with your favorite podcast app. Thanks for listening. Very nice job.
Good
team.
job, everyone. Thank you.
Terry, Pam, if you're watching, we miss you all. I need quiet on the set, including you. Hands up. Lars, I need quiet on the set for a sec. Hi, I'm Chef Tom Douglas. This afternoon on the Hot Stove Society radio show, we talk about modern Asian baking at home with Cat Lieu, tender spring greens with a graceful vinaigrette, Father's Day menus from a devoted daughter, and 10 reasons to roast pork shoulder. One take Tom right there.
My favorite way to cook pork is actually to cut it into little tiny cubes and put it on skewers like you do at Lola down there. Ever since Molly Melkonian turned me on to the pork skewer plate, that's my favorite dish.
That's your
and I try to
go-to?
recreate it at home.
Nice job.
Thanks, Michael.
Bye, YouTubers. Thank you for watching today.
Don't forget to like.